Tonight, Democrats are in shock, at least the ones who consider themselves moderate. Socialist candidates across the nation are not only winning primaries, they're also taking leadership positions in American cities. New York is the latest example, as all of Zohran Mamdani's endorsements won their contest, sending the establishment into a tailspin. Former DNC chair Jamie Harrison, without naming names, argued online, quote, "If you hate the Democratic Party, then please don't run for our nomination." He said, "Don't use the party's resources, volunteers, and infrastructure." And he added that if you don't believe in the party, then don't ask its members to carry you across the finish line. An hour later, he clarified that he doesn't care if you're a progressive, a moderate, or a conservative, but he highlighted that there was always an understanding that building a stronger party was part of the job. Senator Chris Murphy responded to that, arguing that the party is the voters and that leaders need to listen to the voters who are demanding that the party be bolder. Joining us now in our fifth seat is Jumaane Williams. He's the public advocate for the city of New York. And Jumaane, I wonder if, just to respond to what Jamie Harrison is saying, is he right to say, if you're not a card-carrying Democrat, get out of our party, don't even bother running?
First, I start off every sentence with Nixon 5, so I just have to put that out there.
Okay.
But the truth is...
Zohran Mamdani is a ruthless tactician, according to prominent Democrat Anna Navarro. And I agree. Mamdani-backed candidates have tweeted that they admire Lenin, Kim Jong-un, and Stalin. They want to abolish police, prisons, and ICE, advocating for no deportations, even for murderers and rapists. Mamdani is using the democratic machinery for his own terrifying agenda. That's the truth of it.
He's incorrect. Like the whole context is wrong. And we keep pretending somehow that the people in power in a lot of places were not folks from outside who came into the party one way or the other, didn't like what was happening, said, I'm going to try to make some change. And that's what's happening here. And quite honestly, what we see happen in New York City is, to me, an extension of what happened from 2008, where people who may not have even bought a black toothbrush voted for Barack Obama. They then voted for Donald Trump. There are people in New York City who voted for Donald Trump and AOC. People have been saying,
Mamdani
that's
after
correct.
That, yeah.
There are people who are saying, we don't want the status quo, we don't want the same message and the same messenger. The party leadership that I belong to has rejected that time and time again, and every decision they've made has led us to Donald Trump, and every decision they made have led us to this point. So my hope is that the party will finally say, let's listen to some messaging that is actually working, messaging that pushes back against the divisiveness that we've been seeing and hearing.
If there's one thing a political party is going to do, it's to protect the political party as it currently is. And the people who know that the best are perhaps Republicans who experienced it vividly in 2016 when Donald Trump ran for the nomination, and he ran as an outsider, and he shook up the party, and he dispensed with all the establishment types, and then he took over the party with all of his extreme views on all sorts of things. And I call them extreme because that's what Republicans called them at the time. So, I mean, this is actually, in some ways, kind of a Trump playbook.
Well, except Trump wasn't trying to, bring about the downfall of Western civilization like some of these socialist candidates are in the Democratic Party. And so, I mean, look, I'm not a Democrat, but I've been amused at the infighting in New York City today, and some of it is pretty powerful constituencies. I saw a video last night in one of these victory parties of a room full of young white socialists screaming at a television with Hakeem Jeffries on it, who's poised, by the way, to possibly become the first black Speaker of the House, going, "You're next, you're next, you're next." Not a great look for the party. I saw that Mamdani went after the head of the Hispanic caucus as well. I see Tish James is even mad at Mamdani. So there's a lot of splits.
All of a sudden, Republicans are so into identity politics. I'm shocked. I am shocked.
A few things here. First, a lot of times in campaigns we see politicians endorse other candidates, endorse politicians, and that's all they do, right? You get a press release that says so and so just endorsed me. No, this I would say, Mamdani and his team, which have figured out the formula in New York City, not only endorsed, they campaigned with these candidates. His team was working with these candidates, the team that was so effective in working on social media and getting voters out. Also, let's remember that it was, I think, something like 5% of eligible voters that showed up to vote in yesterday's primary. So very few votes made a very big difference.
I was on the ground speaking to voters. So let me say, it is usually a very few amount of people who make a decision anyway. So they're pretending like that
it's a party primary.
That's correct. But I want to be clear, on the ground, what people cared about is affordability. What people cared about was feeling safe and what that means in their community. What people cared about was health care. So the construct is incorrect, because I think people care about that across the country, definitely in New York City. What the Republican Party has been able to do is say that you don't feel safe, you don't feel like you can afford to pay here because of people you may not like, whether it is trans, whether it is immigrants. What Mamdani and others, by the way, there's always been an issue with class and race when it comes to the left, and we have to address that. But what they have been able to do, that the reason that you can't live in New York City is because of an exploitive economic system. And that economic system is what needs to change.
But can I ask you, I thought, I mean, to me, Nydia Velázquez is a progressive.
Yeah.
She is, she's most definitely, and she was in Congress for 34 and a half years.
Correct.
She endorsed somebody to replace her, and that's who Mamdani beat yesterday. Mamdani's candidate beat yesterday. To me, Adriano Espaillat, the first Dominican to be elected to Congress, was an undocumented immigrant also. I don't see them as moderate.
Nydia's legacy should have been more respected. Let's just be clear about that.
Jumaane is the only panelist tonight who's not critical of Mamdani. Anna Navarro is absolutely right. And this is a classic folly of the left. Their mission is to tear down, never to build. They constantly have to sell the message, let's overhaul everything, even their own kind. Jumaane was, from the get-go, thinking in terms of race, and now that Anna Navarro is naming a slew of Democrats of color who made serious marks in the party, Jumaane has no comeback. This is not sustainable. It speaks for itself. The next Mamdani will do the same thing to Mamdani, and Mamdani asked for it.
And she was the first member of the New York Congressional Caucus to endorse Mamdani.
What Republicans has been good at is making these labels, even though people don't know what they are. And so what I do know is there's a lot of agreement about what people feel and want to be able to afford where they live and want to feel safe and want health care. When we decide these labels, the biggest thing to me about yesterday and the way the direction we have been going is who is going to use their political capital to push past the normal ways of doing business in politics. And that is what voters are saying. I want the person now who is going to push past, I guess the best way to put it may be respectability politics, which we do need, but push past that. So when I get a phone call from a leader of a legislature, or I get a phone call from the executive, I'm going to push past that and say, this is what my constituents want.
All right, let me squeeze in a quick break here. We'll come back at the other side and finish the conversation. Welcome back. We're talking about the sweep of Mamdani candidates in New York yesterday. And let me play what one of his endorsed candidates, perhaps one of the more controversial ones, what she said about why she won that race. Listen.
Over the past 8 months, all of you in this room know how much the Democratic machine has tried to count us out. How at every turn they've underestimated us. And in the words of Shirley Chisholm, even if the establishment machine has done everything in its power to keep our community from having a seat at the table, well, I have some bad news for them. We've brought folding chairs.
All right.
I mean,
the establishment machine, she's
Abby,
going after them.
We're still in the anti-establishment element of our political history, I suppose, in our country right now. But to me, if I'm a Democrat, I'm really wondering, and I'm really concerned about this going beyond just New York, beyond Washington, D.C., because I can assure you, we're going to make the argument to voters, you can either be for less taxes or the party that wants to tax you more, because if you're going to say everything's for free, that money has to come from somewhere.
Well, it already is happening all around the country.
You run the risk of pushing out a lot of highly successful people. You think about Mamdani. Mamdani promised a lot of things. Just really quickly, what has he accomplished of any of the things he's promised? I don't know.
Michael asked a question.
Okay, I'll let you answer that later, but go ahead.
Michael Singleton rightfully asks, what did Mamdani deliver so far? That's a really good question. So I've got an answer for you. New York forfeited over $13 billion in a single year because the city's millionaires fled to Florida and Texas. Now, Mamdani's answer to that is to punish and tax the ones who stayed. In New York, less than 1% of filers pay nearly 40% of the city's income tax. And Mamdani's gung-ho plan is to demand that same 1% to pay up, all the while painting the rich who pay for city services as this evil, greedy class. It doesn't make any sense. Mamdani wants to provide free everything, but he pushes the message that the people who pay for it are evil. What are your thoughts about this? Please share down below in the comment section.
Can this expand outside of New York City? And I actually don't think it can. I mean, just look at, I think New York is a microcosm.
I'll tell you what.
I think these types of candidates that have won are not the type of candidates that could win in Virginia or New Jersey. Look at Mikey Sherrill. Look at Abigail Spanberger. I'm not saying that you can't have
what I'm saying is, but you have a messenger and you have a message.
But also look at
Sabrina, the congresswoman who replaced Mikey Sherrill, who New Jersey 11th.
Yep.
Yeah, and Alilia Mejia is far more progressive.
Mikey Sherrill is a moderate. I don't think this goes. I don't think this is expansive of the party. I mean, look at Kate Connolly, who won in the Westchester. I mean, the Hudson Valley seat. That is a moderate
Democrat. If you continue to do what the Democratic leaders have done, and the Democratic leaders, what they've done is unfortunately join Republicans in trying to bash things that people don't even know about. So they've taken catchphrases and join the public saying, hey, these are bad, instead of explaining. People don't even know what democratic socialism is.
Like what catchphrase?
If you talk about DEI, people don't even know what that is. If you talk about democratic socialism, people don't even know.
But Democrats are supportive
but they don't even know,
of inclusive and diverse policy.
Socialism, people don't even know what that is. And how American that is.
What is democratic socialism?
So all that is, if you compare that to democratic capitalism, is a different economic system.
What does that mean?
But let me tell you, no, hold on. If you tell people anywhere in this country, do you like your K-12 education? Do you like your public library?
But what's the different form of capital, of economics that you
but it's
just
those
mentioned?
Kind of things that we want to push when it comes to housing.
What is the different form of economics?
A trillionaire, while you have abject poverty, that is a system that is not.
He's not a trillionaire. He's not
billionaires. Trillionaires. But it doesn't matter.
Elon Musk is.
Does Jumaane know trillionaires create jobs and wealth for the nation so that Mamdani can spend?
That's what I'm saying. What Democratic leaders need to do is translate and not join Republicans in pushing back on things that the party says it stands for. The party says it stands for everybody getting housing. The party says it stands for everybody.
So you have an issue with people who have achieved great things.
I want to
the consumer. Wait a minute here, because you're saying if someone becomes a billionaire, let's just talk. This is basic economics.
Well, I want to go back to the message and the messenger.
If you create a
not
product,
every messenger will work everywhere. Well, the message can work in different places.
If you create a product that the consumer then buys, then that investors, including retail investors, can invest in the stock market. That's how wealth is thus built. Typically, that wealth is tied to ownership.
Let me not get it. Let's talk about tangible. We don't have a lot of time. Just a second.
To healthcare.
We don't have a lot of time, so I don't want to get too much in the weeds on the
but
one.
this matters, though.
On the one
Economics
person.
matters.
Hold on a second. But let's just talk about the broader issue, okay? I think what the people like Zohran Mamdani are putting on the table is, do we need a more fair economic system where people at the bottom can do better and not just people at the top? And the reason that message is resonating is because it is a fact that economic inequality has been supercharged in the last 10, 20, 30 years in this country. So that is a fact that's irrespective of where you are in this country. And I think that's why there is a real question of, it's not about, are you going to run socialists everywhere, but is the anger against the establishment, the anger against an economic system that is leaving people worried about what they put in their gas tank and how much money they have for it, is that anger going to fuel candidates that speak to it versus the candidates who just want to maintain the status quo?
I would say that one of the things we learned last night is that past the very friendly smile of Zohran Mamdani, he is a ruthless tactician and an ideologue who wants more people of his ideological bent elected, and he's not satisfied with just being.
And he doesn't. And even Nydia Velázquez didn't endorse him, and the other thing that from last night is
To quote my friend Whoopi Goldberg, I would say to Chuck Schumer, dude, you're in danger. Because this, I think, puts a lot of wind in the sails of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to challenge him.
Do you think it was economic concerns that got Dan Goldman banned from that coffee shop in Brooklyn?
I think, first of all, that was horrible. And so I want to make sure I lift it up. Dan Goldman is a gentleman as far as I'm concerned. I also think it was horrible, the anti-Haitian and anti-black rhetoric, and anti-Muslim rhetoric that occurred with the Chevalier race. But I do think economics is at the root of it, and equality.
In that specific instance, you think it had anything to do with economics?
A lot of specifics, but we need to look at what's happening.
I just want you to admit what was actually behind these congressional races.
Well,
we're talking all around it.
No, we're not. What was behind those races was that people can't afford to live, and the inequality that exists in different spaces.
All right. Okay. Everyone, thank you very much for being here. We have some great...
Even Abby Phillip refers to the Mamdani mob as socialists. Now, thank you for watching this far. This is what I do. I break down the mainstream media from a sensible position without the fluff and without the ads. Subscribe so you won't miss the next one. God bless.